The rain had been falling for hours, turning the dust of Red Hollow into black mud, and out on the far edge of the territory, where the land rolled into empty plains and the wind spoke in long, lonely sighs, a man named Luke Mercer sat in the dim glow of his oil lamp, mending the strap of his saddle. Luke was a man of few words, his voice as rare as rain in summer, his heart locked behind walls built the day his wife died and his little girl was taken by fever. Since then, the cabin had been silent except for the crackle of the fire and the occasional restless snort of his old mare, Daisy. But that night, in the muted roar of the storm, Luke heard something, faint, almost drowned in the wind. A knock, hesitant, uneven, like the hand behind it wasn't sure whether it wanted to be answered at all. Luke opened the door to find a woman standing in the rain, her dress torn and plastered to her skin, her hair dripping and tangled, her bare feet half sunk into the mud, and her hands clutching a shawl so tight against her face it seemed to be the only thing keeping her from breaking. "Please, don't look at my face," she whispered, her voice trembling not with the cold, but with something deeper, shame, fear, and a weariness so heavy it seemed to bend her shoulders. Luke, caught between instinct and curiosity, said nothing at first, but the sight of her swaying on her feet pulled him into action, and he stepped aside, guiding her in out of the rain. She moved like a wounded animal, hesitant, ready to bolt, her eyes darting to every shadow as though expecting something to leap from it. He set her by the fire, brought her a blanket, and tried to coax her to drink some coffee, but she kept her head bowed, the shawl never leaving her face. Hours passed in uneasy silence, the storm battering the windows, and at last she spoke again, her words spilling out in a halting, broken rhythm. She'd been taken by men who thought the frontier gave them the right to own whatever they could break, and when she'd fought, they'd punished her, leaving their mark so that the world would never forget what she'd been through. "If you see it, you'll turn away, just like everyone else," she murmured, her fingers white-knuckled around the edge of the shawl. Luke felt something deep inside him stir, a memory of the nights he'd sat by his wife's bed in her last days, unable to stop what was coming but refusing to look away. He told her softly that nothing she could show him would make him leave, and after a long, trembling pause, she lowered the shawl. The firelight revealed a scar running from her brow across her cheek, deep and jagged, as though carved with cruel precision, and for a moment Luke could not breathe, not because it was ugly, but because it was beautiful in its truth, a testament to the battles she had survived. His knees buckled under the weight of that truth, and he sank before her, not out of pity, but out of something far stronger, respect, awe, and a fierce, unspoken vow. "You're still here," he said simply, and those three words broke something in her, tears spilling down her face as though no one had ever dared to say them. In the days that followed, she told him her name, Clara, and piece by piece, he learned the rest. The gang who'd hurt her still roamed free, their cruelty unchecked, and though she had escaped, she'd been hunted every mile since. Luke's hands tightened around the rifle that had been gathering dust for years, the fire in his chest reigniting in a way it hadn't since the day he buried his family. The next morning, before the sun had even burned the mist off the prairie, Luke saddled Daisy, and Clara watched him from the doorway, her blanket drawn around her but her eyes steady, as if she already knew what he meant to do. He rode into town. First, gathering supplies, then into the Badlands, following the trail of the men she'd named. One by one, they fell, quick, efficient justice under the cold sky, until only their leader remained, a man with a grin like a wolf and a history of walking free no matter how many graves he left behind. Luke found him in a saloon 2 territories over, drinking like the law couldn't touch him, and maybe it couldn't. But Luke wasn't the law. What happened next was quiet, fast, and final. When Luke returned to the cabin weeks later, the weight on his shoulders was lighter, and Clara's eyes met his without flinching. They began to rebuild. Not just the cabin, but themselves, learning to live again in a place where laughter slowly replaced silence. And if you, friend, believe in stories where broken souls find the courage to rise, where the scars we carry become the proof that we survived, then stick around. Subscribe now, because out here in the Wild West, there are 1,000 more tales that will ride straight into your heart.